Good morning, grade 3 students. Today, Tuesday, April 21, 2020, I'm Miss Alice. We're going to continue Chapter 5, Ecosystems. Lesson 2, How do living things get energy? Objectives for today. Describe how energy flows through ecosystems in food chains and food webs. Identify food webs. Before we start our lesson, please open your books at pages 212 to 113 to correct our homework. Question number 2. Complete the captions in the diagram to explain how energy is transferred in this food chain. A food chain begins with energy from the sun. Very good. Grasses use air, water, and energy to make food, from the sun to make food. Very good. Prairie dogs eat grass. Energy passes from the grass to the prairie dog. Good job. Golden eagles eat prairie dogs. Energy passes from the prairie dog to the eagle. Very good. Question number 3. Draw an X on the consumer that is an herbivore. Circle the consumer that is a carnivore. Herbivore means eat only plants. Carnivore means eat only other animals. You should put an X on the prairie dog and you should circle the golden eagle. Question number 4. Decomposers are not shown in the diagram. Tell what role you think they play in this food chain. Decomposers could break down the wastes and remains of the prairie dog. Before we start our lesson, let's review food chain. What is a food chain? A food chain shows the transfer of energy within an ecosystem. When one organism is eaten by another, most of the energy is lost, and a little bit gets transferred to the consumer. The first link in the chain goes to the producers, like plants. They use energy from sunlight to make their own food and grow. Consumers get their energy from the food they eat. The primary consumers, like insects or rabbits, eat plants. The next few links in the chain consist of animals that eat other animals. The last step of the chain goes to decomposers, like fungi. They use the remains of organisms to grow. Vocabulary review. Food chain. How energy passes through an ecosystem through organisms eating and being eaten. Producers, organisms that produce their own food through photosynthesis. Consumer, organisms that consume other organisms for energy. Decomposer, organisms that break down waste and dead matter. These vocabulary words, you should study them. Also, we should review the following key terms. Herbivore, an animal that eats only plants. Carnivore, an animal that eats other animals. Omnivore, an animal that eats plants and animals. Today we're going to speak about food web. Open your books at pages 214 to 115. What is the heading? Food webs. Very good. Let us read together the text in front of us. Do you eat the same food at every meal? Some animals do not always eat the same things either. Ecosystems have many food chains. Food chains combine to form a food web. A food web is a system of overlapping food chains in an ecosystem. Food webs show that energy flows in many different ways in an ecosystem. Energy can flow from one producer to many consumers. One consumer can be eaten by many other consumers. All life needs energy. The sun is the ultimate source of energy for life on Earth. Without it, nothing would be able to survive. As a result, living things have developed special ways to get the energy from the sun. They also developed special relationships and interactions that allow energy to be transferred. Once the energy has been captured, it gets around through the various organisms in a particular area. This transfer of energy is called a food web. In their simplest form, food webs are formed of food chains. Food chains show a direct transfer of energy between organisms. A chain might involve a mouse eating some seeds on the forest floor. Then a snake comes along and eats the mouse. A while later, an owl eats the snake. With each step, some of the energy from the sun, which is trapped within the seeds, is getting passed on. Food chains do not show the transfer of energy in an ecosystem. This is because each organism can eat multiple things and be eaten by multiple things. For example, mouse might eat seeds, but it might also eat berries or even some grass. The mouse might be eaten by a snake or the owl or even a fox. The snake could be eaten by the owl, but also it might be eaten by a fox. A food web is a clear example of the transfer of energy in an ecosystem. This diagram shows an example of a food web from the Great Plains. As you can see here, grasses use air, water, and energy from the sun to make food. The energy passes to the cattle, the mouse, the grasshopper, and the prairie dog. They are all herbivores. They eat only plants, while the other animals, snake, golden eagle, coyote, black-footed ferret, and badger, are carnivores. They eat other animals. So, food webs show that energy flows in many different ways in an ecosystem. Energy can flow from one producer to many consumers. One consumer can be eaten by many other consumers. For example, the prairie dog can be eaten by black-footed ferret and coyote. Changes in food webs. All of the living things in a food web are connected. If one part of a food web is removed or changed, other parts change. For example, prairie dogs build colonies on the grassy plains, but people also settle on these plains. This reduces the habitat for prairie dogs. Their numbers may decrease. With fewer prairie dogs to eat, black-footed ferrets may not have the food they need. The ferrets may die out. This change can affect the badgers who eat ferrets. Badgers may have to look for other food. Based on the food web shown, what might happen if there were an overpopulation of coyotes? Take a minute to think about the answer. There might not be enough prairie dogs to feed the coyotes. These consumers might need to find other food sources, and some of them might die. So, if one part of a food web is removed or changed, other parts change. Homework for tomorrow. Answer the following questions. Question number 5. Draw an X on the consumer in this food web that is an omnivore. Question number 6. List the consumers in this food web that eat prairie dogs. Question number 7. Underline two effects in the text in front of you at page 215 that may result if the number of prairie dogs is reduced. Question number 8. How are food chains and food webs alike and different? Question number 9. Think about what you learned about food chains and food webs. How do living things interact? Have a nice day.